Hi everyone, and welcome back. After having fun building the Dory and Pram, congratulations, you have officially made it to Wooden Ship Model Making 103. In today's video, we are stepping it up by building the Muscongus Bay lobster smack. Along the way, we will dive deeper into essential techniques like planking, painting, rigging, and finishing your ship model. For this project, we are working with a 1:24 scale kit from Model Shipways. Inside the box, you will find detailed building instructions, laser-cut wood parts, cast metal fittings, and other materials you will need to bring the model to life. Let's jump right into the build. I started with the center spine. To ensure a straight and true center spine, I laid one of the spine pieces flat on my work surface. Then I carefully glued the three center pieces onto it, making sure all the slots and top surfaces aligned perfectly. A quick tip for the centerboard mechanism: if you want to be able to raise and lower it later, do not overdo it with the glue when bonding the spine pieces. Once the spine was assembled and reinforced with the included pieces, it was time to move on to the bulkheads. To make sure each bulkhead was perfectly perpendicular to the center spine, I used the Lego blocks as a guide. This simple trick helps keep everything square and aligned, ensuring a solid foundation for the rest of the build. The Muscongus Bay lobster smack holds a special place in the history of the Maine lobster fishery. These iconic vessels, developed during the 19th century along Maine's rugged coastline, particularly in Muscongus Bay region, played a crucial role in supporting the burgeoning lobster industry of the time. Before we get to planting the hull, let's focus on prepping the bulkheads. A thorough sanding of each bulkhead is key. Use the deck piece as your guideline and carefully sand down the bulkheads. For this, I'm using 100 grade sandpaper. Keep in mind, you don't need to achieve a perfectly smooth surface. A bit of roughness actually helps the glue adhere better when it's time to plank. The planks included in this kit are sequenced and pre-shaped to fit snugly over the frames. Here is how I handle them. Before gluing, I soak each plank in hot tap water for about 2 minutes. This keeps them warm and moist, making them easier to bend and less likely to splinter. Once they're pliable, I position them over the frames and secure them with tiny sewing pins while the glue dries. Don't worry about the pinholes. We will fill them with wood filler and sand the hull smooth later. After sanding, those holes will be completely invisible. Now a quick note on the lobster smack itself. These boats are ingeniously designed for transporting live lobsters from traps to markets or dealers. What set them apart was inclusion of wells or tanks built into the hull, allowing seawater to flow through and keep the lobsters live during transport. Interestingly, the term smack originally referred to small, fast-sailing vessels used for fishing or coastal trade. Muscongus Bay, nestled along Maine's mid-coast, played a pivotal role in the early days of lobster fishing. The rugged coastline, frigid waters, and rich marine life made this area a perfect breeding ground for the lobster industry in the early 19th century. Back then, fishermen faced a major challenge: keeping their lobsters alive long to transport them to market, especially with no refrigeration available. This dilemma gave rise to a game-changing innovation, the lobster smack. Lobster smacks transformed the industry. Before their invention, fishermen relied on tidal pools or dammed seaweed to keep their catches alive, which severely limited how far they could fish and how far they could sail. Smacks, however, were specially designed boats with water-filled tanks that kept lobsters alive during transit. This allowed fishermen to deliver live lobster to distant markets, opening up new opportunities and turning Maine into the heart of U.S. lobster trade.
Model Expo serves modelers with quality kits since 1976.
After marking the waterlines and painting the top white, I reached for my trusty Tamiya 3mm masking tape to tackle those tricky curved edges. For this build, I decided to stick with the classic color scheme for the boat. Though, of course, this is a great opportunity to get creative if you're feeling adventurous. I typically apply 3 to 4 coats of paint to ensure an even, uniform finish. As you can see, the masking tape really does its job here. There might be a few small spots where a bit of touch-up is needed, but nothing major. Just a quick dab of paint and it's good to go. When it comes to painting the tow rails and the cabin roof, you may want to take the time to tape off the edges for a cleaner finish. I will admit, I took a lazy route and used a very fine brush to carefully paint those areas instead. It worked out fine, but taping would definitely save you some precision work. Now it's time to tackle the bowsprit, mast and spars. To get them properly tapered, I start by using a hobby knife to carefully carve them into a rough shape. Once they were close to the right dimensions, I switched to sanding to refine them to their final forms, working off the drawings as a guide. One thing to keep in mind here, be extra cautious, especially with the boom and the mast. They're quite long and can be fragile. So take your time and sand gently to avoid any accidental breaks. Slow and steady is the name of the game for this step. After attaching all the fittings to the spars and the mast, I finally moved on to the sails. To give the sails a more realistic, weathered look, I decided to add some aging effects. You can also paint the silk span with acrylic paint, like we did in the Pram build, but I opted for a classic tea staining method. I boiled some English breakfast tea in a pan and soaked the silk span in the tea overnight. Make sure to stir the tea well and fully submerge the silk span so the dye spreads evenly. Once the silk span dried, I ironed it flat and transferred the silk pattern onto it. Using a fresh hobby knife blade, I carefully cut out the sails for clean, crisp edges. For the reinforcements, I find tacky glue work the best. Just dab it on and press the reinforcements in place. For the reefing lines, I simply tie the knot at one end. Cut the line to about 2 centimeters. And glue it onto the mainsail as per the sail plan. Finally, I punched the holes to create the sail crinkles. And with that, the sails were ready to go. The rest of the assembly is pretty straightforward and similar to what we did when building the Pram. One key tip: make sure to slide all the sail hoops onto the main mast before you install it on the boat. By the mid-20th century, refrigeration and motorized lobster boats replaced the need for smacks, but this iconic vessel remains a treasured part of Maine's maritime history. To make the rope coils, I wrapped the nylon line around a piece of masking tape to form the coils, then secured them with the jewelry glue. Once the glue dried, I removed the tape and voila, perfect little rope coils to complete the build. Over 55% of the world's lobster supply now comes from the northeastern United States. Thanks to the cold waters, lobster in these regions grow more slowly, resulting in sweet, tender, and absolutely delicious meat. I hope you enjoyed building this Muscongus Bay lobster smack. With this under your belt, you're ready to tackle even bigger projects. Build as much as you can, eat as much as you can, and have fun along the way. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.